My son messaged, "You're not family anymore. We've changed the locks." I replied, "Enjoy your new life. Without my money." The soft glow of the late afternoon sun filtered through the antique lace curtains of Evelyn Sterling's meticulously kept living room, casting a warm, golden hue over the polished mahogany and the collection of cherished photographs. At 78, Evelyn possessed an elegance that transcended her years, her silver hair impeccably styled, her posture still regal, a testament to a lifetime of quiet dignity. She held her smartphone, a gift from her grandson that she rarely used for anything beyond a polite call or a quick glance at the weather, her gaze fixed on the screen. The message displayed was stark, devoid of any warmth, a digital ice pick to a heart that had long known the chill of neglect. "You're not family anymore. We've changed the locks." The words, sent from her only son, Dominic, landed not with the shattering force of a sudden blow, but with the quiet, devastating finality of an avalanche that had been building for decades. There was no surge of anger, no immediate welling of tears. Instead, a profound, almost serene calm settled over Evelyn. It was the peace that comes when the last thread, stretched thin and frayed beyond repair, finally snaps. She reread the message, her eyes tracing the cold, impersonal font, a stark white against the blue background of the messaging app. Changed the locks. On the very home she had purchased, maintained, and poured her love and fortune into for him, his demanding wife, Serafina, and their children. A slight, almost imperceptible tremor passed through her hand, but her expression remained unreadable, a mask of dignified composure. She didn't respond immediately. She didn't even breathe a sigh. The air in the room, usually comforting, felt suddenly thin, almost electric with unspoken meaning. Instead, Evelyn Sterling, a woman who had given her entire adult life, and every material comfort she possessed, to a family that now deemed her disposable, slowly lowered the phone onto the delicate antique table beside her. Its small, modern form seemed out of place amidst the timeless elegance of her surroundings, a jarring symbol of the digital coldness that had just pierced her heart. Her gaze drifted towards a framed photograph of her late husband, Arthur, a man whose gentle eyes and kind smile still brought a pang of longing to her heart. He had built an empire, a legacy of hard work and integrity, and she, in her boundless love, had sought to use its fruits to cultivate an idyllic family life, only to find herself harvesting bitter fruit. The image of Arthur, so full of life and warmth, seemed to silently witness her quiet moment of reckoning. Her silence was not born of shock, but of an absolute, unwavering certainty. This was it. The precipice. The end of a long, arduous journey of emotional depletion and financial exploitation. A cold, determined resolve, sharper than any blade, settled deep within her. It was time. Time for the silence to break. Time for the tide to turn. Time for Evelyn Sterling to reclaim her own life, a life that had been systematically siphoned away by those who had mistaken her generosity for weakness, and her love for an endless supply of money. The message was indeed a lock change, but not on her son's house. It was a lock change on her own heart, barring entry to further pain, and securing her newfound, formidable resolve. A sense of peace, deeper than any she had felt in years, began to unfurl within her, a calm born not of resignation, but of fierce, quiet purpose. She felt, for the first time in a very long time, truly free. To understand the profound calmness with which Evelyn received Dominic's cruel message, one had to delve into the long, winding narrative of her life, a tale woven with threads of immeasurable generosity and unrequited affection. Her journey began not in destitution, but in a comfortable middle-class existence, which transformed into one of immense wealth upon her marriage to Arthur Sterling. Arthur, a brilliant and industrious man, had built a successful manufacturing business from the ground up, a testament to his vision and relentless hard work. He was a man of quiet strength and unwavering integrity, who always spoke of family as his greatest treasure. Their home, though grand, was filled with laughter and shared dreams. He had always made Evelyn feel cherished, her opinions valued, her presence celebrated. When he passed away peacefully in his sleep 15 years prior, a quiet, gentle end to a life well lived, he left Evelyn not just a widow, but the sole inheritor of a substantial fortune, a sprawling estate, a meticulously curated portfolio of shrewd investments, and the thriving business itself, which Evelyn, with her quiet intelligence and sharp business acumen learned at Arthur's side, capably managed to maintain for several years before selling it to a larger corporation for an even more impressive sum. The sale, a carefully orchestrated multi-million-dollar transaction, had solidified her financial independence beyond measure. Evelyn, however, had never been one for ostentatious displays of wealth. She preferred quality over flash, comfort over extravagance. Her true treasures were her family, her beloved Arthur, and their only son, Dominic. With Arthur gone, Dominic and his family became the focal point of her existence, the beneficiaries of her vast inheritance, and tragically, the unwitting instruments of her quiet sorrow. She had poured all her maternal love, previously shared with Arthur, into Dominic, hoping to recreate the warm, supportive family unit she had always treasured. Dominic, in his early 50s, had inherited his father's surname but none of his work ethic or humility. He had grown up with every conceivable advantage, attending elite boarding schools and top universities, never wanting for anything. Yet, instead of inspiring him to forge his own path, it had instilled in him a deep sense of entitlement. He believed the world owed him, and more specifically, that his mother owed him. As a child, he'd always been quick to demand, slow to thank, a trait Evelyn had often attributed to youthful exuberance, hoping he would grow out of it. He never did. His wife, Serafina, was a perfect, if not terrifying, complement to his character. Materialistic and cunning, with an insatiable appetite for luxury and social climbing, she saw Evelyn not as a mother figure, but as a bottomless wellspring of funds, a convenient ATM to fuel her relentless pursuit of a superficial high society life. Her charm was a thinly veiled mask for her acquisitiveness, a fact Evelyn had reluctantly acknowledged years ago. The generosity had begun subtly, a gentle stream that gradually became a raging river. When Dominic and Serafina, then in their late 20s, expressed a desire for a larger home, Evelyn, with a heart full of joy at their blossoming family, their daughter, Chloe, and son, Ethan, were still toddlers, had offered to help with the down payment. "A gift, my dears," she had said, signing a check for $250,000, her heart swelling with the thought of her grandchildren growing up in a beautiful home. They had found a magnificent 5-bedroom house in an upscale suburban neighborhood, far beyond their means. Dominic, with a casual wave of his hand, had dismissed the mortgage payments as a bit tight for their budget, a subtle, unspoken plea. Evelyn, wanting her grandchildren to grow up in comfort and believing she was investing in their happiness, had quietly, and without a moment's hesitation, taken on the entire mortgage, ensuring they lived a life of effortless luxury. For 20 years, she had meticulously paid every single monthly installment, every property tax bill, every insurance premium on that grand house, never once asking for a single cent back. Each month, as the substantial sum left her account, she would tell herself it was a small price for their happiness, for their security. It wasn't just the house. Their cars, for instance, were always top-of-the-line German sedans or luxury SUVs. Every 3 to 4 years, when Dominic or Serafina would casually mention needing an upgrade, or that their current vehicle was getting old, often with a sigh about its mileage or a feigned complaint about a minor scratch, Evelyn would appear with a brand new, fully paid-for car parked in their driveway, complete with bows and a beaming smile. She remembered the year she bought Serafina a sleek Mercedes convertible, a car that cost more than some people's annual salaries, just because Serafina had admired it in a magazine, lamenting she could never afford such a frivolous thing. And when Dominic's Porsche developed a mysterious rattle, a minor issue that could have been easily fixed, Evelyn didn't just pay for the repair, she insisted on buying him a brand new one. "For your safety, dear," she'd said, stifling the pang of unease at his casual acceptance, a mere nod and a brief, almost perfunctory, "Thanks, mother." The grandchildren's education was another significant drain. From the moment Chloe and Ethan were old enough, they were enrolled in the most exclusive private schools, their tuitions running into tens of thousands of dollars annually. Evelyn covered every penny, along with their expensive extracurricular activities, Chloe's equestrian lessons, Her weekly private cello lessons, Ethan's elite hockey league with its costly travel tournaments, their private tutors for every subject, and countless school trips to exotic locales. She remembered the year Chloe wanted to study abroad in Europe for a semester. Evelyn not only paid the exorbitant program fees but also gave her a generous allowance for shopping and experiences, an allowance that dwarfed the budget of many full-time workers. Ethan, similarly, had a penchant for designer clothes, the latest gaming consoles, and cutting-edge gadgets, all funded by his grandmother, who simply wanted to see them happy, believing these were the necessities for their success. Serafina's personal ambitions were also generously subsidized. She had always dreamt of owning a high-end fashion boutique, despite having absolutely no business experience or even a discernible eye for fashion beyond what was currently trendy and expensive. Evelyn, wanting to support her daughter-in-law's aspirations and perhaps hoping it would give Serafina a sense of purpose beyond spending, invested a staggering $500,000 to set up Serafina's chic emporium, in a prime downtown location. She paid the monthly rent for the boutique, covered inventory costs, and even paid the salaries of Serafina's small staff for the first 3 years, hoping it would eventually become self-sufficient. It never did. The boutique struggled perpetually, a black hole of Evelyn's money, requiring constant infusions to keep it afloat, a fact Serafina would always present as, just a temporary setback. Darling, the market is so fickle, you know, always accompanied by a new, more expensive business plan. Family vacations were extravagant affairs, always paid for by Evelyn. Annual trips to the Caribbean, ski chalets in Aspen with private chefs, historical tours through Europe with personal guides, cruises through the Mediterranean on luxury liners. Evelyn would meticulously plan the itineraries, ensuring every detail was perfect, booking the best suites and experiences, only to find herself often relegated to a separate, less desirable suite, or left behind while Dominic and Serafina went off on their romantic excursions or exclusive activities, returning late, barely acknowledging her presence. She was the travel agent, the financier, but never truly an integral part of their family fun. The emotional neglect was far more insidious than the financial drain. Evelyn craved genuine affection, inclusion, and a modicum of respect. She yearned for simple family dinners, for her opinions to be sought, for her wisdom to be appreciated, for her presence to be cherished. Instead, she was an afterthought, a convenient necessity. Family gatherings were rare, and when they did occur, Evelyn was often treated as an elderly relative to be tolerated rather than a beloved matriarch. Dominic would interrupt her mid-sentence, dismissing her thoughts with a wave of his hand. Serafina would subtly roll her eyes at her old-fashioned anecdotes or her practical advice, and the grandchildren, mirroring their parents' attitudes, would bury themselves in their phones, barely acknowledging her, their thank yous, mumbled and insincere. She remembered Chloe's high school graduation, a monumental day that Evelyn had looked forward to with immense pride. Evelyn had bought Chloe a brand new car as a gift, ensuring she had a grand entrance to adulthood, a shiny symbol of her grandmother's love. Yet, during the family photos, Serafina subtly ushered Evelyn to the side, claiming she was blocking the light or standing in the wrong spot. Evelyn had smiled politely, her heart aching, feeling like an extra in her own family's narrative. Another time, she had offered to host Christmas dinner, as she always loved the festive spirit and the warmth of a large family gathering. Dominic had scoffed, "Mother, your house is too small for our parties now. Besides, your cooking is a bit traditional. We'll just do it at ours, you can just bring the wine, the expensive kind, of course." She had arrived that Christmas carrying 3 bottles of a rare vintage, only to be seated at a small table away from the main family, her presence barely acknowledged, her attempts at conversation met with polite but firm disinterest. Her phone calls to Dominic were met with hurried excuses. "Busy, mother, I'll call you back," a call that rarely came, often weeks later, usually just before another financial request. Serafina would frequently decline Evelyn's invitations for lunch or shopping, citing a packed social calendar, only for Evelyn to later see photos on social media of Serafina enjoying lunch with her friends at the very restaurant Evelyn had suggested, or flaunting a new designer bag that Evelyn herself had discreetly paid for. They would call her only when a bill was due, a new luxury item was desired, or a financial crisis, often self-inflicted through their lavish spending, arose. Their voices, usually clipped and impatient, would soften to a saccharine sweetness when a request for funds was imminent, only to revert to their usual disdain once the money was transferred, once Evelyn had fulfilled her role as their provider. Evelyn had tried, countless times, to gently address their behavior. She'd hinted at her loneliness, at her desire for more quality time, for genuine connection. Her subtle overtures were met with blank stares, feigned incomprehension, or dismissive remarks like, "Oh, mother, you're so dramatic. We love you, you know we do. We're just busy people." Her quiet pleas for respect were interpreted as nagging, her attempts at connection as an imposition. The truth was, they saw her as a walking, breathing ATM, her only value tied to her immense fortune. She was a resource, not a person. A burden, not a blessing. Each dismissal chipped away at her spirit, leaving her feeling hollowed out, a mere ghost in her own life. The final insult, the message about changing the locks, was not a sudden act of cruelty. It was the culmination of years of emotional starvation, of being systematically stripped of her dignity and reduced to a mere financial utility. It was the moment the scale tipped irrevocably, the point of no return. Evelyn Sterling had finally reached her breaking point, not with a bang, but with the quiet, chilling click of a lock. The sound resonated in her memory, not as a threat, but as an awakening. The serene calm that had settled over Evelyn did not dissipate. It deepened, solidifying into a formidable resolve that permeated her every thought and action. The moment she set her phone down, a mental switch had flipped. Years of suppressed hurt, of swallowed indignities, now fueled a cold, clear purpose. She did not hesitate. There was no internal debate, no lingering doubt. The decision was made. A clarity she hadn't felt in decades enveloped her, sharpening her mind, focusing her will. Evelyn rose from her armchair, her movements deliberate and unhurried, as if each step was a conscious act of liberation. She walked to her ornate writing desk, a family heirloom passed down through generations, its polished surface reflecting the fading sunlight. She retrieved her personal ledger, a thick, leather-bound book where she meticulously tracked her finances, a habit instilled by Arthur. Turning to the section marked Family Contributions, she began to methodically list every single payment, every allowance, every major gift she had made over the past 2 decades. She dated each entry precisely, adding small, terse notes. The mortgage payments for 14 Willow Creek Lane, month after month, year after year. The car leases and purchases, specifying the make and model for each luxury vehicle. The private school tuitions for Chloe and Ethan, broken down by semester and academic year. The allowances, the seemingly small but cumulatively enormous sums given for shopping and experiences, or living expenses. The monthly rent for Serafina's boutique, the bailouts for its failing inventory, the countless desperate calls for funds to save it. The extravagant vacation expenses, flights, hotels, activities, often itemized. And the countless smaller emergencies, a broken washing machine, a sudden dental bill, an overdue credit card statement, a last-minute flight for a social emergency. The sheer volume of it was staggering, even to her, a woman who had written every check. It was a financial empire she had handed over, piece by piece, to a family that offered only crumbs of affection in return. The numbers on the page began to blur, not from tears, but from the sheer immensity of her investment, the profound imbalance of her generosity versus their gratitude. Her first call was to Mr. Harrison, her long-standing private banker. Evelyn had known Mr. Harrison for over 30 years. He was a discreet, highly efficient man who managed the bulk of her investments and oversaw her numerous accounts, a true professional who understood the nuances of wealth management. His voice, when he answered, was as calm and measured as always. Mr. Harrison, Evelyn's voice was calm, clear, devoid of any emotional tremor, a stark contrast to the storm she felt she had just weathered. Evelyn Sterling here. I need to make some immediate and significant changes to several of my accounts. Mr. Harrison, accustomed to Evelyn's quiet efficiency, listened attentively as she systematically outlined her instructions. Firstly, the recurring mortgage payment for the property at 14 Willow Creek Lane, currently debited on the 1st of every month. I want that terminated immediately. Effective today, no further payments are to be made. A slight pause on the other end, a flicker of surprise in Mr. Harrison's usually impassive demeanor. Understood, Mrs. Sterling. That's for Mr. Dominic Sterling's residence, correct? Precisely, Evelyn confirmed, her voice unwavering. Next, the leases for the 2 luxury vehicles, the Mercedes GLS and the Porsche 911. Both are under my name, correct? Indeed, Mrs. Sterling. We handle the direct debits for those. Are you looking to transfer them? He asked, a hint of professional curiosity in his tone. No, Mr. Harrison. I want them terminated. Contact the respective dealerships. Inform them that I am no longer responsible for those leases. They can proceed with repossession as per the terms of the agreement. I believe there are clauses for immediate termination with asset recovery. Mr. Harrison's voice remained professional, but a hint of surprise now laced it. Repossession, Mrs. Sterling? Are you certain? This is quite an unusual request. Never more certain, Mr. Harrison. Additionally, all standing orders for tuition payments to the Northwood Preparatory Academy and St. Jude's Collegiate. Terminate those. And the monthly rent payment for Serafina's boutique on Grand Avenue. Terminate that as well. She continued, a relentless wave of cancellations, each one severing a financial tie, each one a step closer to her own freedom. All allowances currently paid to Chloe and Ethan Sterling, through their designated trust accounts, freeze those. In fact, freeze all access to those trust accounts entirely for the foreseeable future. Any debit cards associated with those accounts, cancel them. Mr. Harrison, a seasoned banker, had seen his share of family disputes, but the sheer scope and suddenness of Evelyn's actions were remarkable. He knew the Sterling family's financial dependence on Evelyn was vast. Mrs. Sterling, with all due respect, these are rather drastic measures. Are you quite sure you wish to proceed with such comprehensive actions without communication? He ventured, sensing the potential for immense fallout. Mr. Harrison, Evelyn replied, her voice firm, resolute, my decision is final and non-negotiable. I trust you to execute these instructions with the utmost discretion and efficiency. Consider it a matter of personal principle. A line has been crossed. Of course, Mrs. Sterling. As you wish. I will ensure all necessary actions are taken today. You'll receive confirmation emails for each termination within the hour. Her next call was to Mr. Davies, her trusted family lawyer, a man who had handled her late husband's estate and her personal legal affairs for years. He was a stern, meticulous man, known for his unwavering loyalty to his clients and his shrewd legal mind. Mr. Davies, Evelyn began, her voice unwavering, betraying no hint of the emotional turmoil she had endured. I require your immediate assistance with a series of legal actions. I am revoking all financial powers of attorney I may have granted to my son, Dominic Sterling, or his wife, Serafina Sterling. Furthermore, any documents or agreements that imply my financial responsibility for any of their assets or liabilities are to be legally nullified. I want to ensure there is absolutely no legal recourse for them to claim any further financial assistance from me. I wish for a complete and irrevocable financial separation. Mr. Davies, who had always viewed Evelyn as a beacon of quiet generosity and dignified benevolence, was momentarily taken aback. Mrs. Sterling, this is quite a turn of events. May I inquire as to the cause? This seems sudden. Evelyn briefly recounted the text message, her voice flat, devoid of emotion, simply stating the facts. It has become abundantly clear, Mr. Davies, that my family views me solely as a financial resource, not as a person. This cannot, and will not, continue. I want every possible legal loophole closed. I wish to sever all financial ties, completely and irrevocably. I am reclaiming my life. Understood, Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Davies replied, his tone now reflecting a growing understanding and a hint of admiration for her newfound resolve. He recognized the weight of her words. It will be a complex process, given the extent of your previous arrangements, but rest assured, I will ensure it is handled expeditiously and with absolute legal watertightness. I will draft the necessary documents and send them for your signature immediately. We will also need to inform all relevant parties, the mortgage company, the car leasing companies, the schools, the landlord of the boutique, and so on, that you are no longer the guarantor or payer. We will make it clear that any past agreements are now null and void. Excellent, Mr. Davies. I trust your judgment completely. Evelyn hung up, a profound sense of lightness settling over her. The first steps towards her liberation had been taken. Within hours, the first tremors of Evelyn's decisive action began to ripple through Dominic and Seraphina's seemingly unshakable world. They were too engrossed in their usual self-indulgent routines to notice immediately, but the cracks were forming. The first hint of trouble came that afternoon. Seraphina was at her struggling boutique, Seraphina's Chic Emporium, attempting to charm a potential customer into buying an overpriced handbag that had been gathering dust for months, when her phone buzzed. It was a text from her landlord, Mr. Thompson, a gruff man with little patience for late payments. Urgent. Your monthly rent payment has not been received. Please remit immediately to avoid late fees. This is the first time this has happened. Seraphina scoffed, rolling her eyes. Typical. Evelyn must be late again. So unreliable these days, always forgetting something. She dismissed it with a wave of her perfectly manicured hand, assuming her mother-in-law would eventually sort it out, as she always did, perhaps with a slight delay that would prompt a brief, dramatic phone call from Seraphina. Later that evening, Dominic and Seraphina were enjoying a lavish dinner at their favorite upscale Italian restaurant, Il Giardino, where they were regulars, known for their expensive tastes and their tendency to always pick up the tab, with Evelyn's money, of course. As the waiter presented the bill, an impressive sum for their multi-course meal and vintage wine, Dominic confidently handed over his credit card, a supplementary card linked to one of Evelyn's primary accounts, one that he had always treated as his own. The waiter returned moments later, a perplexed expression on his face, holding the card. I'm terribly sorry, sir. Your card has been declined. Dominic frowned, annoyed, a vein beginning to throb in his temple. Declined? That's impossible. Try it again. There must be some mistake. The waiter, slightly hesitant, tried again, swiping the card through the machine. And again, the machine flashed, declined. Dominic's face began to redden, a flush of embarrassment spreading across his features. Seraphina, equally mortified, hissed, "What's wrong with it, Dominic? Just use your other one." She hated any public display of imperfection, especially when it involved money. "This is my other one," Dominic retorted, his voice rising in frustration, drawing curious glances from nearby tables. He tried a third time, with the same result. The manager was called over, and a quiet, embarrassing conversation ensued at their table, the manager politely but firmly explaining the card was indeed invalid. Dominic had to scramble, digging deep into his rarely used wallet, to find an older, rarely used card that he kept for emergencies, one that actually belonged to his own modest checking account, which he only used for pocket cash. It barely covered the bill, leaving them with no tip. They left the restaurant fuming, blaming the bank, blaming the card company, but never once suspecting the true source of their sudden financial hiccup. The evening, which had started with such pomp, ended with a silent, tense drive home. The following morning brought more unsettling news, delivered with brutal efficiency. Chloe, at her elite university, Northwood Preparatory Academy, called her mother in a panic. "Mom, my tuition payment didn't go through. The bursar's office just called and said I have a hold on my account. I can't register for next semester. They said the payment was cancelled." Her voice was shrill with indignation and fear. Seraphina, still irritated from the previous night's restaurant debacle, snapped, "Don't be ridiculous, darling. Grandma always pays your tuition on time. There must be a mistake. Call the school again and tell them to check their system." But the school confirmed, the payment scheduled for that morning had been abruptly cancelled, and the account was now severely delinquent. Then came the calls from the car dealerships, polite but firm, shattering Dominic's composure. Dominic received a call informing him that the lease agreement for his Porsche had been terminated by Evelyn Sterling, and arrangements were being made for immediate repossession. Serafina received a similar call regarding her Mercedes. What? Dominic roared into the phone, his face a mask of disbelief, his mind reeling. Repossession? What are you talking about? My mother wouldn't do that. This is insane. He hung up, his mind racing, a cold dread beginning to creep in. The credit card, the tuition, the cars. All of it. It couldn't be a coincidence. It all pointed to one person. Serafina, he yelled, rushing into the living room where his wife was still trying to placate a tearful Chloe on the phone, promising to sort it all out. It's mother. She's done something. The cars are being repossessed. My credit card was declined last night because she canceled it. Serafina's eyes widened, a dawning horror creeping into her usually haughty expression. Her face, usually so composed, crumpled with disbelief. No, she wouldn't. She can't. She's just being dramatic, Dominic. She'll reverse it. She always does. She loves us too much. Her voice was laced with a desperate hope, a refusal to believe her wellspring of wealth had dried up. But this time, the familiar pattern of Evelyn's quiet suffering and eventual capitulation was not unfolding. This time, the taps were not just dripping, they were abruptly, irrevocably, shutting off. The rising panic in Dominic and Serafina's household was palpable, a chilling prelude to the storm that was about to break. Their world, built on the foundations of Evelyn's generosity, was teetering on the edge of collapse. Panic, raw and unadulterated, seized Dominic and Serafina. The phone calls from the bank, the schools, the car dealerships, and especially the increasingly agitated landlord of Serafina's boutique, painted a grim picture. Their carefully constructed edifice of luxury was crumbling around them, brick by expensive brick. Their lives, once so effortless, were suddenly fraught with demands they couldn't meet. This is insane. Dominic yelled, pacing their opulent living room, the one Evelyn had purchased and paid for, his footsteps heavy on the plush carpet. She's completely lost her mind. How could she do this to us? To her own son. We'll be ruined. Serafina, usually so composed and calculating, was a frantic mess. Her perfectly manicured hands trembled as she clutched her head, her elaborate hairstyle coming undone. My boutique. The landlord said he'll start eviction proceedings next week if the rent isn't paid. My business will be ruined. What about Chloe and Ethan? They'll be thrown out of school. Their futures are jeopardized. Her voice was thick with self-pity, not genuine concern. Their initial anger quickly morphed into desperate manipulation, a strategy born from years of getting their way with Evelyn. She's trying to punish us, Dominic, Serafina wailed, tears streaming down her face, a performance honed over years of getting her way. She dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, casting a glance to ensure Dominic was watching. She's old and lonely, and she resents our happiness. We need to go there, immediately. We need to make her see reason. Remind her of her duty. Remind her how much she loves her grandchildren. She can't live without us, Dominic, she needs us. Dominic, driven by a primal fear of financial ruin, nodded fiercely, his eyes wide with desperation. You're right. We'll go there. We'll humble ourselves, if we have to. We'll tell her we miss her, that we'll visit more. She can't seriously expect us to live without her money. She won't last a day without us in her life. He truly believed she was dependent on them, not the other way around. They piled into their Porsche, unaware that its days under their ownership were numbered, and sped towards Evelyn's elegant, understated home, the very picture of calm and timeless grace. During the drive, they rehearsed their strategy, a mix of feigned remorse, emotional blackmail, and veiled threats disguised as concern. They would play the distraught children, the loving parents concerned for their mother's mental state, implying senility if she didn't comply. When they arrived, Evelyn's house radiated its usual tranquil serenity. The garden was perfectly manicured, the porch light gently illuminating the evening shadows, casting soft pools of light on the pristine walkway. Dominic hammered on the door, his usual calm facade shattered by fear and rage, his fist making a loud thud that echoed in the quiet evening. Evelyn opened the door herself. She stood there, impeccably dressed in a simple, elegant silk blouse, her silver hair gleaming, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. Her expression was calm, her eyes clear, almost devoid of emotion. There was no warmth, no surprise, no anger. Just a quiet, unsettling stillness that radiated confidence and an unyielding will. She looked utterly untroubled. "Mother!" Dominic burst out, rushing past her into the foyer, his voice strained with manufactured urgency, Serafina close behind, already dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "What is the meaning of this? The bank is calling, the car companies, the schools. What have you done? You've cut us off." Serafina threw her arms around Evelyn, a theatrical embrace that felt stiff and forced. "Oh, Evelyn, darling. You're scaring us. What's wrong? Are you unwell? You know we love you so much, we're so worried about you." Her voice was sickly sweet, laced with feigned concern. Evelyn gently detached herself from Serafina's embrace, stepping back, maintaining a polite distance. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft, but carried the weight of years of silent suffering and newfound resolve. "Come in, Dominic. Serafina. Let's talk." She led them into the living room, a room where countless holidays and family moments had been quietly funded by her. She invited them to sit on the very sofa she had bought 3 decades ago, a piece of furniture that had seen more of their lives than they probably remembered. They perched on the edge, fidgeting, sensing the undeniable shift in the air, the unyielding strength emanating from the woman before them. "So," Evelyn began, her gaze sweeping over them, steady and unwavering, a piercing clarity in her eyes. "You've received the news, I presume." Dominic's jaw tightened, his face red with a mix of fury and fear. "News? Mother, you've cut us off. Everything. Our house, our cars, the children's education, Serafina's boutique. Have you lost your mind? What about your grandchildren? Do you want them living in poverty? Do you want Chloe to drop out of university? Ethan to lose his hockey scholarship? Poverty, Dominic?" Evelyn's voice remained even, a stark contrast to his rising hysteria, cutting through his dramatics. "Is that what you call living without my money? A life where you might actually have to work for your own lavish comforts, rather than simply expecting them to be handed to you?" Serafina interjected, her voice laced with mock heartbreak, attempting to regain control of the narrative. "How can you say that, Evelyn? We've always been so grateful. We love you. We're your family. You're our mother, Dominic's mother." Evelyn's gaze sharpened, piercing through Serafina's carefully constructed facade, stripping away the pretense. "Grateful? Is that why you excluded me from Chloe's engagement party last year? Because I'm too old-fashioned for your friends? Is that why you consistently ignore my calls, only to remember my existence when a bill is due, or a new luxury item is desired? Is that why, Dominic, you sent me a text message today informing me I am no longer family and that you've changed the locks on the very home I purchased for you, paid for 20 years, and meticulously maintained?" The question hung in the air, heavy and undeniable, a devastating blow to their carefully crafted performance. Dominic visibly flinched, his face paling, a look of profound shock replacing his anger. Serafina's theatrical tears dried up instantly, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. They had expected her to be hysterical, distraught, easily manipulated into reversing her decision. Not calm, rational, and devastatingly precise, recalling their cruelties with chilling accuracy. "You know what I wanted, Dominic?" "Serafina?" Evelyn continued, her voice gaining a quiet power, each word a hammer blow of truth. I never wanted your money. I had more than enough. All I ever truly desired was genuine affection. A modicum of respect. To be included. To be treated as a mother, as a person, not as a limitless financial resource. I paid for your sprawling homes, your luxury cars, your children's elite education, Serafina's struggling boutique, your extravagant vacations. I paid for everything. And what did I receive in return? Neglect. Dismissal. Contempt. And finally, today, a callous message telling me I am no longer family, after I poured my entire fortune into making your lives comfortable. Dominic found his voice, a desperate, pleading tone, the panic now clear in his eyes. Mother, that was just a moment of frustration. You know I didn't mean it. We were just overwhelmed. Please, Mother, don't do this. Think of the children. Chloe's almost done with her degree. Ethan needs his hockey scholarship. We'll be ruined. And what about my needs, Dominic? Evelyn asked, her voice quiet, but resonating with the weight of decades of unspoken pain, a profound sadness mingling with her resolve. What about my need for companionship? For a simple conversation that isn't about money? For a birthday wish that isn't followed by a request for a new gadget? I gave you my life. I gave you my fortune. I kept giving, even when you took everything and offered nothing in return. I tried to connect. I tried to speak up. But you never listened. You only ever saw the balance in my bank account, a number to be exploited. I was your walking ATM. Serafina, recovering her composure, attempted a different tactic, one designed to shame Evelyn. Evelyn, this is absurd. You're clearly not thinking straight. What will people say? Our reputation will be ruined. You'll be the talk of the town. People will call you a cruel, vindictive old woman. Evelyn met Serafina's gaze with a look of serene indifference, a slight, almost imperceptible tilt of her head. My dear Serafina, my reputation has always been built on integrity and quiet dignity, not on the lavish lifestyle I subsidized for others. What people say is of no concern to me. My peace of mind, my self-respect, are far more valuable than the fleeting opinions of a society that measures worth in material possessions. Your opinion, or that of your social circle, holds no sway over me any longer. She paused, allowing her words to sink in, the silence in the room punctuated only by their ragged breathing. For years, I have been your personal ATM. Now, that ATM is closed. Permanently. The locks have indeed been changed, Dominic, but they have been changed on my vault, not on your house. The mortgage is your responsibility now. The car leases are your responsibility. Your children's education is your responsibility. Your boutique, Serafina, is your responsibility. Every single financial tie has been severed. And let me assure you, my decision is absolute. There will be no reversals, no renegotiations, and no further financial assistance. Not now, not ever. Dominic and Serafina stared at her, their faces a mixture of shock, fury, and dawning despair. The woman before them was not the pliable, endlessly giving Evelyn they had always known. This Evelyn was a formidable force, calm and resolute, her eyes reflecting a steely determination they had never seen. She was not asking for their love or their money. She was simply stating a fact, a definitive end to an era of exploitation. The confrontation had ended not with a bang or a shouting match, but with the quiet, devastating finality of Evelyn Sterling reclaiming her life. They had utterly failed to manipulate her, and the realization hit them with crushing force. Dominic and Serafina left Evelyn's house in a daze, the silence in their Porsche heavy with the weight of their shattered reality. The initial shock quickly gave way to a furious blame game, their true characters laid bare by adversity. This is all your fault, Dominic. Serafina shrieked, her voice hoarse with rage, her carefully constructed composure utterly gone. That stupid text message. I told you not to be so harsh. Now look what you've done. My boutique is ruined, my life is ruined, My fault? Dominic roared back, slamming his fist on the steering wheel, making the expensive car shudder. You're the one who kept pushing her for more and more. Your boutique is a black hole. And you're the one who kept saying she was old and senile, that she'd never do anything, that she was too weak to ever stand up to us. This is on both of us, Serafina, but mostly you. Their mutual recriminations continued all the way home, a desperate attempt to deflect from the terrifying truth: they were financially ruined. The grand life they had always taken for granted, the life built entirely on Evelyn's generosity, was over. The cold reality began to set in with brutal efficiency. Within days, the repo men arrived for the Porsche and the Mercedes. The sight of their gleaming luxury cars being towed away on a flatbed truck, a symbol of their past opulence, was a public humiliation. It left Dominic and Serafina without personal transportation, forcing them to rely on taxis, ride-sharing apps, and even public transport, a humiliating experience for people who had always flaunted their wealth and viewed anyone without a luxury car as beneath them. Their neighbors, usually so deferential, now watched with thinly veiled curiosity, a hint of schadenfreude in their eyes. Eviction notices from the mortgage company soon followed for the house, a stark reminder that the property they had enjoyed for 2 decades was never truly theirs. Dominic's name was on the deed, but Evelyn had diligently kept meticulous records of every payment she had made. Mr. Davies, Evelyn's lawyer, navigated the complex legal battle with ruthless efficiency, ensuring Evelyn was fully compensated for her decades of payments before the sale, leaving Dominic with very little equity, certainly not enough to buy another property in their desired neighborhood. They were given a mere 3 weeks to vacate. Serafina's boutique, already teetering on the brink, finally collapsed under the weight of unpaid rent and dwindling inventory. Mr. Thompson, the landlord, wasted no time in serving eviction papers and locking the doors. Her dream, subsidized by Evelyn, became a very public failure, a source of gleeful gossip among their social circle, particularly among the wives who had always secretly resented Serafina's perceived effortless wealth. Chloe and Ethan, suddenly facing the prospect of being expelled from their elite schools and losing access to their generous allowances, called their parents in a frenzy, their entitlement rapidly replaced by fear and resentment. "How could you let this happen?" Chloe cried, "My life is ruined. I can't believe I have to transfer to a state school. All my friends will laugh at me." Ethan, equally distraught, complained bitterly about losing his elite hockey scholarship and his designer wardrobe budget. They, too, turned on Dominic and Serafina, mirroring their parents' own self-centeredness, unable to comprehend that their parents' actions, not Evelyn's, had led to this collapse. Their once extravagant social life evaporated. Friends who had eagerly accepted invitations to lavish parties, enjoyed Evelyn's generous handouts, and basked in the reflected glow of the Sterling's wealth, slowly distanced themselves. Invitations stopped coming. Phone calls went unanswered. The Sterling name, once synonymous with wealth and privilege, now carried the whispers of financial scandal and social disgrace. Dominic, who had always coasted through life on his mother's fortune, his career a series of uninspired, undemanding jobs, found himself scrambling to find a job, any job, to support his family. After months of fruitless searching for a high-paying executive job for which he was entirely unqualified, he finally swallowed his pride and took a managerial position at a local hardware store, a job far beneath his perceived status, and one that required actual physical labor and customer service skills. Serafina, for the first time in her adult life, had to consider working a regular, low-paying job to make ends meet, perhaps even retail. The thought filled her with abject horror. She had always prided herself on her leisure and her discerning taste. Now she might have to serve customers. Meanwhile, Evelyn Sterling experienced a profound sense of liberation. The moment Dominic and Serafina left her house, the heavy weight she had carried for so long lifted. There was no joy, no triumphant gloating, just an immense, quiet relief that settled deep in her bones. The exhaustion of years of emotional labor and thankless giving finally caught up with her, but it was a cleansing exhaustion, a quiet shedding of a burden. She felt lighter, clearer, as if a thick fog had lifted from her mind and heart. Her first act of self-care was simple, yet deeply significant. She called her oldest friend, Martha, a woman of warmth, good humor, and unwavering loyalty whom she hadn't seen enough of in recent years, largely due to her family's unspoken disapproval of Martha's humble lifestyle and her frank, unvarnished advice. "Martha," Evelyn said, her voice lighter than it had been in years, a genuine smile in her tone, "would you care to join me for lunch tomorrow?" "My treat, of course. I have so much to tell you, and so much catching up to do." Martha, delighted, accepted immediately, sensing a shift in her friend's spirit. Later that evening, Evelyn sat in her quiet living room, the photographs of Arthur and her younger, hopeful self smiling back at her. She picked up a travel brochure she had discreetly acquired weeks ago, filled with images of serene landscapes and cultural tours she had always dreamed of taking but had never found the time or the courage to pursue, always prioritizing her family's desires. A faint smile touched her lips, a true, unburdened smile. For the first time in decades, Evelyn Sterling was truly free. Free to choose, free to live, free to be herself. Months passed, turning into a full year, and the lives of the Sterling family diverged dramatically, a testament to the profound consequences of Evelyn's decisive action. Evelyn Sterling bloomed. The financial freedom she now experienced was not merely about money, it was about the freedom to choose, to live authentically, to invest in herself. She started by indulging in the passions she had long deferred, those whispers of desires she had silenced for the sake of her family. She enrolled in a local art class, rekindling a love for watercolors she had put aside decades ago, a hobby that Arthur had always encouraged. Her strokes were initially tentative, hesitant on the canvas, but with each passing week, they gained confidence, mirroring her own journey of rediscovery. She joined a book club at the local library, engaging in lively discussions with new friends who valued her intellect and experience, her sharp wit, not her bank account. She found genuine connection, laughter, and intellectual stimulation she had long been denied. The travel brochures became itineraries. Evelyn embarked on a luxurious cruise through the Norwegian fjords, marveling at the majestic landscapes, the towering cliffs, and the serene waters, feeling a sense of awe and wonder she hadn't experienced in years. She took a culinary tour of Italy, savoring every exquisite meal, learning to make fresh pasta, and visiting sun-drenched vineyards, each taste a celebration of life. She visited ancient ruins in Greece, feeling a profound connection to history and the enduring human spirit, reflecting on the rise and fall of empires, and the resilience of the human soul. She wasn't just seeing the world, she was rediscovering herself within it, peeling back layers of obligation and sacrifice to find the vibrant woman beneath. Her once guarded demeanor softened, replaced by a genuine lightness and a constant twinkle in her eyes. She laughed more, spoke freely, shared her stories, and truly lived each day with purpose and joy. Her home, once a quiet sanctuary from a demanding family, became a welcoming haven for genuine friendships, filled with the aroma of her new cooking experiments, the gentle sounds of classical music, and the quiet hum of a truly contented life. She had traded the gilded cage of perpetual giving for the boundless expanse of true freedom. For Dominic and Serafina, life became an unrecognizable struggle. The vast house, the luxury cars, the designer clothes, the exclusive schools, all were gone. They had been forced to sell the house, a painful and drawn-out process that left them with minimal funds after Evelyn's rightful share was recovered. They moved into a cramped, rented apartment in a less desirable part of town, a stark contrast to their former opulence. Dominic, after months of fruitless searching for a high-paying executive job for which he was entirely unqualified, finally swallowed his pride and took a managerial position at a local hardware store, a job far beneath his perceived status, requiring him to interact with ordinary people and perform actual work. Serafina, her boutique long since closed, found work as a sales associate in a discount clothing store, folding clothes and dealing with demanding customers, a bitter pill for a woman who had once prided herself on exclusivity and her sophisticated taste. Her dreams of socialite status had utterly collapsed. Their children, Chloe and Ethan, were forced to transfer to state universities, relying on student loans and part-time jobs, a stark awakening to the realities of life without their grandmother's endless supply of money. They occasionally called their parents, complaining bitterly about their hardships, the indignity of having to work, and the unfairness of their new lives. But the blame game had shifted. They now understood, on some level, the depth of their parents' previous financial dependence on Evelyn, and the consequences of their collective ingratitude. The family dynamic, stripped of its monetary lubrication, was raw and often fraught with tension, their relationship strained by shared hardship rather than strengthened by it. They were learning, through harsh necessity, what it meant to stand on their own 2 feet, to manage a budget, and to face the consequences of their own choices. They were certainly not happy, but they were, perhaps for the first time, independent. Evelyn had no regrets. She occasionally heard snippets of their struggles through mutual acquaintances, but the news no longer caused her pain or guilt. Her heart, once burdened by their ingratitude and her own quiet suffering, was now light, filled with the joy of her own reclaimed existence. She understood, with profound clarity, that true love and respect could never be bought. They had to be earned, freely given, and reciprocated. She had spent decades trying to purchase affection, only to find that the most valuable currency was self-worth. Her victory wasn't about revenge, it was about liberation. She had not only cut off the financial taps but had also severed the emotional chains that had bound her to a family that didn't deserve her boundless generosity. Evelyn Sterling, no longer a silent benefactor, was now a vibrant, fulfilled woman, living a life of authentic joy, proving that sometimes, the greatest act of love is to love yourself enough to walk away. This powerful story of Evelyn Sterling's journey from quiet exploitation to profound liberation is just one example of the incredible tales of resilience and unexpected justice we bring to you on this channel. If you were moved by Evelyn's courage and found satisfaction in her ultimate triumph, please consider subscribing to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next compelling story of life lessons and unexpected turns. We want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a similar act of ingratitude from someone you've helped? Or perhaps you've had to make a difficult decision to protect your own well-being and finally say, enough? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section below. How would you have reacted if you were Evelyn? What do you think Dominic and Serafina learned from their experience? We read every comment, and your insights are truly valuable to our community. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.